Welcome to a special edition of My Community, My Caribbean Community. And who better to chat with us about their journey across the Caribbean than the Caribbean man himself, Julian Rogers. Julian, it's so good to have you home.
Thank you very much, Kim. That's like music to my ears, right?
Really?
Yes.
We could get into music a little bit later.
Yes.
But tell me, what led you out of Barbados and across the Caribbean?
I have to thank Michael Rudder for that. He's an outstanding broadcaster over the years here at CBC. He called me one day back in 1969 to tell me that there was an opening at Radio Antilles. Radio Antilles at the time was the most popular radio station in the entire Caribbean. It reached everybody from St. Kitts in the north all the way to Guyana, and all the islands in between, obviously. And we all admired that station because it was an international station playing all the top international hits from the Billboard charts and also from the UK. It was manned by a number of former pirate DJs from England, and so we all follow that station. And so the opening was there, and I contacted them, and they said, "Look, come." So I jumped on the plane. It was like my second trip out of Barbados. The first time I'd gone to Trinidad with a band that I managed at the time called the Fantastics. But that was the start of what has turned out to be decades-long working and fun assignments across the entire Caribbean.
Wow. You ever found yourself becoming homesick?
After a while, no. It is. I have to tell you that I've come back home to Barbados several times, and always whenever the opportunity has come for me to go to another country in the region, I've just picked up and gone. So homesick is not a term that would work with me, because everywhere else I've been across the Caribbean, I felt like home. I mean, I remember a time being away from Antigua, and as I approached, the aircraft approached the country, I said, I feel like the Pope. I want to kiss the ground when I get off the aircraft, right? So I've always made every one of these places has been home, and that's that has blown away the so-called "I want to be home, back to Barbados" kind of thing.
That's a wonderful way to look at things. That being said, did you find yourself, as you nestled in each and every territory, taking a little bit of home with you, like our Bajan delicacies? Yes,
thanks to my first wife, who was a good cook. Yes, we would have enjoyed cocoa and flying fish. Somebody coming up from Barbados bring a dozen flying fish or 2 dozen flying fish, which you could afford at that time, as opposed to current prices. But I think it was a reverse situation, in that we were learning to enjoy the food from the various countries. And I'll give you a story about Montserrat, for instance. 2 things. One was, their national dish is something called goat water. Please don't call it soup. You'll lose your head with that one.
Goat water.
Right. Goat. Well seasoned, right? Little potato in there, etc. But I won't give away the secret. But what I call the great dispeller of Bajan snobbish was eliminated when I had my first taste of mountain chicken. Now, yes, you're going to say a frog.
Had mountain chicken.
Mountain chicken, right? So I was invited to dinner by some Germans, and they said, on the menu this evening is steak or mountain chicken. And I said, no mountain chicken for me. Have a steak. So anyhow, when we went to dinner, they brought the mountain chicken out. I looked at it. It looked like chicken as opposed to a frog. And they said, you have to try it. You have to try it, Julian, try it. And I tried it. And I said, you guys can have the steak. I'm eating this.
You had the mountain chicken.
I had the mountain chicken. And that's where I decided there and then that I would not turn my nose up at anybody's offering of food, because that was it. So, that was the start of the process of appreciation of other foods other than flying fish and cuckoo and pudding and sauce, right?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So we're talking about actually taking down cultural barriers.
Yes.
Through food, through cuisine.
It works.
And you have any other examples across the Caribbean?
Well, I mean, so I said the snob was broken down.
Yes.
So it meant I was now open to everything else. I mean, in Trinidad, for instance, roti, right? But I lived at a point in Trinidad where I didn't eat meat for about 4 years because I didn't need to, because all of the dishes that prepared were coming from the gardens, from the market, all the fresh produce. You didn't need meat, right? So that is one of the things. Of course, Jamaica with the jerk chicken, jerk pork, etc. There's a lot of food, and now in my last stop or current stop in Belize, the mix of the population itself, because we're talking about original Americans, as they point out these days. The Mayans are there. You've got the Garifuna, which would have been the Carib community that came all the way from, got banished to St. Vincent and Honduras. So there's a lot of variety in the food. Burritos, I said we get a burrito breakfast for $2. What is a burrito breakfast? $2 Barbados, by the way.
$2 Barbados dollars?
Yeah, the same equivalent to the Belize dollar is the same as the Barbados dollar, but the value of it is far more. The burrito is about this length, that thin, and is made up, the breakfast burrito has 3 eggs in it with either ham or chicken or whatever the case may be. And they do an amazing dressing with onion and pepper, and that's it. It's $2 billion for breakfast.
Now, you have...
You want anything better than that?
Not at all.
Okay.
I think you sold me on the Caribbean connection.
Food.
Through food.
Yeah.
But what else, in your estimation, has linked us as a Caribbean people together?
Music. We had a gathering of the staff in Belize some months ago, and they were partying until about 4 o'clock in the morning. And all of a sudden, one of them started to play Gabby Griner, Red Plastic Bag, all the Bajan hits, right? So I said, guys, do you know where that music comes from? And they said, no, we don't know. I said, do you realize that all those artists are Barbadian?
Wow. So,
everywhere you go, you're hearing Boots and Jack and RPBs, Raga Soca, etc. So, but what is interesting is that all the countries are absorbing each other's soca music, for instance. Okay? So the guys from St. Vincent are making big in Barbados. The guys in Grenada are making big in Trinidad. The guys from Antigua are making big in next door, and St. Kitts making big in Carnival in Antigua and Barbuda, etc. Music crossover. Well, don't talk about the reggae. The reggae permeates every one of the Caribbean territories and the Rastafarian language, etc.
This is something that we often take for granted until we actually set foot on other Caribbean soil. Having said that, do you think that you would find yourself choosing to nestle permanently in any of these one territories? We've had Antigua, we've had Montserrat,
Jamaica.
We've had Jamaica, we've had Trinidad.
Yeah.
Where would you want to hang your hat?
It's funny you ask a question like that. I don't know. I mean, to be quite fair, I know it's not Barbados when you ask a question like that. So that each one of these countries has a distinct marker in my life. I felt at one stage that Montserrat was the place that I would live and die. Okay? I felt similarly about Antigua for a long time, actually. Then I have to tell you that when I was in Jamaica, I was convinced that Jamaica was going to be the last stop. And then I got this call to go to Belize to investigate a radio and television operation and to work on an upgrade. And I now feel that Belize could be it. I mean, I think about how old I am, and I say, well, I mean, where else would I head off to now to do some work in the first instance? Because I'm not, you know, my father used to say, if you don't retire, if you retire, you fossilize.
Like
so
that.
therefore, keep busy. And I agree with him. I mean, when he was saying that when I was a youngster, I didn't quite understand, but I understand now. So that it is not a matter of me sitting down and contemplating and saying, I am going to retire, I'm going to end, I'm going to hang up my microphone or whatever, you know, we media people do. It is wherever I am is home.
I like that.
So it could be Barbados, it could be Belize, you know, I could end up going back to Jamaica or Montserrat.
Tell me a little bit about your first television program in Trinidad and throughout the Caribbean.
My first television program was right here at CBC. Yes, 1969. A man called John Oxley, who I credit with discovering me when I was a youngster at school, invited me to come and host a new quiz show. It was called the Heinz Hotline. And the set was that I was a DJ playing tunes that the audience was expected to identify. And I have one memory from that show, the very first show. Now I'm a radio announcer, and with coming under the guidance of an Alpha Pragnell and a Frank Pardo, which was, if you're a radio announcer and you're in the studio and the studio is on fire, you keep talking, and the audience must not know that the studio is on fire because your job is there to talk. So here I'm doing the first show, and my mind is not about a commercial break. So I introduce the show, I have a thing, and I keep talking, and of course they cut. So Vic Brewster was the director at the time, and he was famous to say, that boy has been in radio too long. So that was the first television show. Mm-hmm. I never got back into television until I came back to Barbados in 1977, when Tony Best was then the new general manager. George Hall was the head of the newsroom, and I became available. That's a whole nother story. And George called and he says, look, we want to introduce 60 Minutes on television, and would you come home to Barbados? And so I ended up being the television anchor with Marvel Manning and Sylvester Ford. Sylvester Ford was doing sports. When Sylvester wasn't there, it was Trevor Thorpe, who I see he's still in the newsroom these days. That goes back to 1977.
Wow.
So that was television then, and then I did television again in Trinidad. Introduced morning television in Trinidad called Morning Edition. That was in 1995 until 1998, and then I came here and introduced Wake Up Caribbean.
Yes.
So that's my television. The television marks. I've done more television since then, but you know.
So you truly are a Caribbean man.
And happily so.
I've asked you where you want to lay your hat.
Lay down.
I take it you're still sitting on the fence for that one.
I'm not sitting on the fence. I'm just going with the flow.
Going with the flow.
Yeah.
Well, Belize has been your last stop.
No, current.
It's current stop.
Don't say stop. Don't say last.
Current.
Yeah,
Your
okay.
current stop.
Yeah.
What's the one thing that you've found near and dear to you since you've made Belize home?
Wow. Near and dear in terms of Belize. Well, I told you about the food already. What I like about Belize is that it is huge. And I'll tell you, explain. Belize is 60 times bigger than Barbados. I said 60, huh? Mainland plus offshore islands. I've only gone to one offshore island so far, but there's several of them. I like the fact that I like to drive. Now, there could be one of the furthest points I can drive in Belize is 4 hours from Belize City. Okay, I can go north and head to the Mexican border, or I can go in another direction and end up in Guatemala. All right, Punta Gorda is like the farthest point in the south of the country. That's a 4-hour drive. Yes, I like to drive, but I mean these are long drives. And I at first, if you come from an Antigua or a Barbados, I mean, a 4-hour drive or even an hour drive is a long drive.
That's a lot.
I'll tell you what happened the other day. Well, last year, I went to Canada to see a sister of mine, and her husband drove me to what is known as the ice fields. That was a long drive. And I came back from that experience of about 5 or 6 hours going in one direction back to Belize, and I said to myself, I will never complain again about a long drive. And so said, so done.
Wow.
So the space, I think, is what endeared me to Belize. It's the same feeling I had when I went to Trinidad for the first time. I used to just get up on the side of the morning, to get in the car, and with a backpack, and I would just drive. And that's how I managed to discover a lot of Trinidad. Similarly, during COVID in Jamaica, where the country is shut down during the week, and you could leave on a weekend and go somewhere far and come back. So you'd be coming back Monday morning. So the first thing is to do, get out of the office on a Friday afternoon and keep driving, go to a hotel or a resort or whatever the case may be and spend the weekend.
Right now we have an opportunity to share a bit of the Caribbean culture through Carifesta. In your estimation, why is that cultural linkage so important?
I think one of the things about Carifesta is that if we absorb what Carifesta is conceptually, it is a way of what I call breaking down the barriers by showing how common the commonality of us as a people. You talk about food, I talk about music just now. There's literature, for instance, because I want people to understand that this is not a jump up festival. This is really a highly intellectual experience, right? We've come to learn and to absorb and understand and appreciate the writers of the region, because I think that was really the heart of the Carifesta concept that President Burnham in Guyana first espoused this. It was a matter of giving the Caribbean audience an exposure to what is unique and different about us. And I think that is really what a Carifesta is, really a festival of our cultural identity. And that, I think, is really, I was thinking today, for instance, that Carifesta is every 4 years. And I just thought that one of the things that a host country could do is to have a little Carifesta in the various communities, leading up to when they have the big event. And I say that only because I remember the days of crop over, when Alambe Motley was in charge at NCF, and they were able to mobilize the community development officers across Barbados, and everybody had to do flicky. People were searching for the earthy names of Barbados to label their particular events in the various parishes. I think that's missing, really, because the festival must come from the community, and it must then come to the center. And so you have the community activities, and then you have the national activities, and that's where people get very involved. It's like our cricket.
Yeah.
When we played cricket at the BCL level, and then the people come out of the BCL, became into the BCA, and then into the West Indies team. So there's got to be a nursery.
And it helps to foster that
it also
connectivity.
then fosters because people make the relationships in these kinds of environments. It's like going to the university. You leave Barbados and you go to the university at Mona in Jamaica. What happens? You marry a Jamaican woman and become Prime Minister of Barbados. It's happened twice.
Truth. History
Right? Okay.
has been made.
Right. So that people go away with a deeper appreciation of why we are Caribbean people, as opposed to being Bajan and Antiguan and Trini and whatever else. Yeah, we have that. We have a national identity, but we also have a regional identity, and that's what we need to forge.
And to be quite honest with you, we tend to recognize that commonality more often in times of crisis.
It's interesting you said that.
It's a truth. It's
Yeah.
a truth. If we had to dial back and we go back to Grenada and the
And
Morris
Dominica.
Bishop coup, for example, that in itself is something that riveted the rest of the Caribbean. Can you tell us about that?
It's like you're reading my mind in terms of an assessment of where we are as a Caribbean nation. I've been talking recently and urging people to recognize that CARICOM as an institution is like a family. And in fact, I describe CARICOM as a family of Caribbean nations, deliberately so because we only recognize it in a crisis. So a hurricane impacts Dominica, and all the countries respond. Government, regional agencies, international other countries from around the world, etc. And that response is coordinated by SEDIMA, based here in Barbados. But that response is a prepared response. In other words, they've pre-positioned the supplies in Antigua as a hub. They've got supplies in St. Lucia. They've got, and all of that coordination is coming out of a SEDIMA office in Barbados. It is not, the British don't send a warship in to respond to Dominica without talking to SEDIMA. They're coordinating that. But that is a CARICOM response.
Yeah.
The same thing happened with COVID. CARFA in Trinidad, which is our CDC, which people are very familiar with, does all the legwork in terms of the research, the testing, and whatever else, telling the governments, look, this is what we know, this is how you should handle this, etc. That is CARICOM at work. But that CARICOM is not sold that way, unfortunately. And that's the point I make, because we need to understand that that response, the Caribbean Court of Justice is another example, it is us, it is our Caribbean responding to the Caribbean family's needs for justice, for relief, for health, for agriculture. The whole effort to reduce our food import bill was 2025, and now it's now to 2030. The whole effort to change our consumption such that we reduce the import bill that we are building up in billions of dollars every year, when that money should be going to dealing with there's so many things we need to do, whether responding and creating a better social safety net, but most importantly, addressing our health concerns. Look, Healthy Caribbean, based here in Barbados again, but mobilizing a regional response to the NCDs. We have a real problem. I mean, I'm coming here and I'm looking around me and saying, all these big people, we have an obesity problem. But how do we tackle that? We can only tackle that at a regional level. It's not just one government fighting this thing. And so we need to come to terms and understand that a Carifesta response to our particular challenges, because take crime, for instance. Not one of these Caribbean countries can deal with the crime situation on its own. They've had meetings, they've discussed these things. They got the regional commissioners of police working on this. They got the justices working on it. The last CARICOM summit in Jamaica, even former presidents of the Caribbean Court of Justice met with the leaders to address what the requirements are. So we have a requirement to act as one region. We must recognize that, and not feel that, oh, Barbados is the world. No, it's not. Trinidadians feel the same way too, or Jamaicans feel the same way too. There's some justification, yes, in terms of, oh, Jamaica's created reggae and they've got Bob Marley and whatever else. But when we come down to it, we are part of one family of nations with common interests, common challenges, and we can find our way in this world.
Hence the reason why they call you the Caribbean man.
Hey.
And having had that kind of experience, you've certainly made many others out there want to embrace the Caribbean, Carifesta, and the cultural landscape that exists for so many of us, because we truly are one. We're truly one. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out.
Thank you very much.
And I want to thank you too for being a part of our CARICOM community as we journey not just across the 166, but across the region and hopefully beyond.